Understanding how the trail arm works throughout the golf swing is extremely important if you want to become a more proficient and consistent golfer. This subject is often misunderstood by the golfing masses, where the information that's given on the trail arm and how it works is often incomplete. Today, I'm going to share with you exactly how you need to move this trail arm and wrist to produce better golf swing mechanics, which will produce a more consistent and powerful impact position. I really want to highlight today the importance of the trail arm and the missing piece that so many of you misunderstand. The arm can move in a huge range of motion, which is what makes this part of the swing sometimes so complex and difficult to grasp. But the main thing that people get wrong is misunderstanding how the elbow and the upper arm can move independently of the wrist and the forearm, or said another way, the wrist and the forearm can move independently of the elbow. Knowing that is an absolute game changer, because once you understand that, you can align your arm and wrist in a place that will produce better golf shots immediately. Let me talk you through what I mean. So the trail elbow should set up in a position that I call position number 3. Position number 3 is where the upper arm is externally rotated, so pushed in front of my body, a little bit like you were losing an arm wrestle. So the upper arm is pushed forward and the forearm would be pushed more back, losing an arm wrestle. Position number 3 references the fact that the pit of the elbow is pointing out towards the camera. And I use that 3 number just to give some simplicity to this movement. The elbow could also be turned fully inwards. This would be position number 1. So position number 1 would be the upper arm internally rotated, winning the arm wrestle. In golf, we don't want to do that. But that would be position number 1, where the pit of the elbow points across me. So position 1, position 3, and in between those two would be position 2. We're looking for position 3 with the elbow. It's important to understand. Now, I could also have the same position number 3 with my forearm and hand. You see how my hand's facing out towards the camera. And I could have position number 2 and 1 with my forearm and hand without changing the elbow position. That is an absolute game changer. I promise you, once you understand this and how it applies to golf, you'll never look at this the same way ever again. Most golfers get this wrong because as they're trying to move the elbow in a way in the downswing which they're told is the correct way to move it, specifically keeping the elbow tucked, moving the elbow in front of their body in the downswing, as they're doing something that they believe to be beneficial, and I would agree that moving the elbow in that way would be beneficial in the golf swing. They're doing so, keeping this in position 3. They're also producing and delivering a club and a forearm and a hand here that's also in position 3. Look what that does to the club face. Club face is wide open, never going to hit a functional shot. So you have these golfers trying like mad to keep the elbow in front and push the hands ahead with a club face that will never ever work. What you have to understand is that you can have the elbow in position 3 and the forearm and the wrist in position 2, 1, turned down. Now watch what happens to the club face. I'll keep the elbow in position 3 and I'll move the hand and forearm from 3 to 2 to 1. Watch what happens, 3, 2, 1. The elbow is still exactly where I want it. It's in front of my body, it's tucked in nicely, but now I have a club face that I can deliver at impact that's functional. A trail wrist and trail forearm position that you would associate much more with elite ball strikers. The opposite is true of the poorest players when they're delivering this incomplete, inaccurate club face and impact with the wrong wrist conditions. They're not able to maintain the elbow structure that they want. They're not able to keep that trail arm tucked. And you look at your swing on video and see this arm and elbow moving incorrectly into position 1 because you're trying to save and salvage a club face that was never going to be functional. So you can set up with position 3 and 1 built into your setup, and then you can transport that feeling around your swing in order to produce more powerful, more consistent, more repeatable golf shots. So to help me demonstrate this, I'm going to use the Hack Motion wrist sensor on my trail wrist to show the movement of this wrist more clearly. And specifically, you're looking at the extension and flexion of this trail wrist, as well as some of the rotation that's going on at the wrist level. Now, it's important to understand the problem here, which I've already identified as a golfer trying to get the elbow in the correct position, keep it tucked, move it in front of them on the downswing, and then producing an impact position that wouldn't be particularly functional because of this open club face. That's the wrist motion or the forearm here that I'm referring to. Take a look at the numbers on the screen. When I do the elbow correctly, so position number 3 with the elbow in front, but I also have the trail arm, forearm and wrist incorrect, position number 3 facing out towards you. Look at what happens to the number at impact here in the trail wrist flexion extension. I've basically got a very flat trail wrist. This wrist isn't bent in any direction at all. It's pretty much reading flat to 0. There's 3 degrees of extension as I stand here and talk to you. Now as I come into the ball, I'll just do that one more time. 4 degrees of flexion. So again, the back wrist here with the palm facing out to the right is also referencing the club face pointing out to the right. What I need to do is take that same arm alignment with the elbow and turn the lead forearm and the wrist. Watch what happens to that number. It goes from 3 degrees of flexion, meaning the trail wrist is basically flat. Now I'm going to move that to position 1 by turning the lead wrist and forearm. I've now got 24, 23, 22 degrees of extension. I just went from flat to extended in this trail wrist. That's that trail wrist bend that you'd see so many good golfers demonstrating when they hit the ball. They haven't changed, or I didn't change, my elbow position there. Most of you are trying to fix the open club face problem by moving your elbow out and flipping and casting in order to square the face. That's not the way to do it. That's going to cause you to have poor impact conditions and lose a lot of power. So set up with 3 and 1. That's position 3 with the elbow, position 1 with the wrist and the forearm. Put that onto the club and then try to transport that feel 3 and 1, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, 3 and 1. That same sensation throughout the swing. Now, it doesn't stay exactly like that, but at least having a sense of where that arm is at setup and where that wrist is at setup and how you can move and transport that alignment around your body is a great place to start if you struggle with the trail elbow. You'll be able to keep the elbow in the right position, swing through and hit straight shots because you're controlling the face with the forearm and the wrist piece. You're not controlling the face with your elbows. Let's go ahead and hit one. Position 3 with the elbow, position 1 with the wrist and the forearm. Now I've got that in position, I'm just going to try and transport that around my body and turn through. Felt very clean, very solid contact. I like that sensation of trying to keep that alignment throughout the entirety of my swing. That was a slow one just to get me started, but I'm going to go back in again. Position 3, position 1. It's very easy to draw the ball using these mechanics. Most of you slicers out there are never getting anywhere near this trail wrist condition that I just demonstrated there. So set up in the 3 and the 1, go ahead and hit. So at impact and setup, I had the same amount of trail wrist extension. Okay, I had the bend in the back of the wrist the same, so I transported that number 1 alignment around me in the backswing and the downswing, keeping the elbow in front as well. I hope that helped you to have some better understanding of how this trail arm and specifically with it the trail wrist works. These things work in harmony. You have to understand both of the pieces, and very often when there's a discussion around the trail arm and how it works, it's usually just in isolation of the elbow piece alone. As you've learned today, there's much more to it than that. If you can try the 3 and 1 drill, set up with some small shots, try to transport the 3 and the 1 around you throughout the entire swing, I think you'll see an improvement not only in your ball striking quality but also the consistency as well. If you're looking to increase your understanding of how to train better wrist mechanics, you should click on the link down in the description, which will take you to more videos on how to train your wrists correctly.